This budget hearing conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication now reconvenes. Discussion of the fiscal year 2018 executive budget. This afternoon we have the Office of the Public Accountability. For FY18, the executive budget request submitted by the Governor through the BBMR provides for $1.4 million, which is just a $7,000 increase, or 0.53. The OPA comes today with a request of 1.6, which is a $292,760 increase, or a 20%, almost 21% increase from FY17 authorized levels. I would like to thank the OPA and her staff for being here today, inasmuch as she's already been sworn in. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Speaker Cruz, Vice Speaker Talahi, Senator Esteves, and Senator Atta. With me today, if I may introduce my staff who are here. To my left is the Deputy Yuka Hechanova. To my right is Michelle Berliante. Michelle, together with Yuka, were the primary ones who helped develop the budget package, the annual report, our CCR. And to her right is Llewellyn Talahi. She's part of my management team. And also at the far end is Rodolyn Gerardo, also part of my management team, and Marisol Andrade, my AO. So these are the people who are constituted the development of the budget. Okay. And if I have a letter, and I'll proceed to read it. OPA is requesting a budget appropriation of $1,800,030 for FY28. This represents a 29% increase, or $403,132, from our FY27 appropriation of $1,396,898, which did not allow for lapsed funds to carry over. However, this request is a 12% increase from OPA's FY2016 appropriation of $1,611,851, which included the $222,108 in lapsed funds. We are requesting this increase for FY 2018 in order to retain current staff, fund staff movement to new OPA accountability auditor positions, and hire 3 more auditors. We estimate it will cost $110,000 to move OPA auditors to the new positions and $158,000 to hire 3 additional auditors. From FY 2011 to FY 2015, OPA's average personal costs was just $836,000. In FY 2016, personal costs increased by $195,000, mainly due to staff retention. Our current turnover rate for FY 2016 was 7%, a significant improvement from our prior years when staff turnover was as high as 40%. Our FY 2017 appropriation of $1.3 million is considerably less than our actual FY 26 expenditures of $1.5. Our inability to consistently carry over lapsed funds has affected our recent recruiting efforts at a time when we have finally achieved hiring autonomy. Many exceptional candidates applied that we could not hire because of lack of funding that could have been provided through the lapsed funds. Historically, OPA lapsed funds resulted from unused personnel appropriations due to recruitment and retention challenges. In FY 2017, OPA was the only elected office not authorized to carry over lapsed funds. The elected offices of the Attorney General and the mayors, as well as the judiciary, the University of Guam, and the Guam Legislature, were allowed to carry over lapses. And that includes the legislature also. And in fact, in the Budget Act, there was a section there that allowed the Attorney General to carry over the lapses for the last 5 years. You know, not just the current year, but to allow all the other lapses. We weren't given that same consideration. After 10 years of severe staffing challenges in FY 2017, we maintained a staff complement of 15, the highest since 2010. OPA gained hiring autonomy through Public Law 33226, and we have been able to compensate our certified staff of the 10 to 15 cent pay differential of Public Law 3318. And in fact, we'll be, I'm proud to say we'll be issuing one shortly. I have the new, for OPA's first certified fraud examiner, Andriana Kitagwa, and so she'll be getting a certification pay adjustment. This new autonomy resulted in OPA's ability to hire faster and gain a larger pool of qualified applicants, hence the reason why our 2016 was considerably higher than prior years. We thank the legislature for giving OPA this much needed relief from the staffing challenges we've faced throughout the years. Our staff increases have translated to more productivity. We issued 11 performance audits in 2016 compared to 8 in 2015. We are optimistic in our growth, but in order to maintain this productivity, we must continue to recruit to fulfill our vacancies and give existing staff reasons to stay and continue their careers with OPA. Retention has been a very difficult issue for OPA for the last decade. And let me just point out, for example, in my management team here, fortunately, it's 10 years and above. The next gap is Michelle at 4 years, because we've lost all the people we've hired in between because for better pay. Our next steps are to we are currently in the final stages of creating new positions in order to recruit and retain employees. We have been working with the Department of Administration Human Resources Division since March of 2016 to create and approve new accountability auditor positions, which are more appropriate positions for OPA auditors. Our next step is to shortly post and announce these positions for the required number of days, and we hope to have that done by the end of the week, followed by the DOA director's approval and transmittal to the governor and then to the legislature. We are planning to effectuate, hopefully, these positions changes in FY 2018. In addition to the 11 performance audits we issued in 2016, OPA monitored, reviewed, and analyzed and issued financial audits of autonomous agencies and the general fund. The Governor of Guam's government-wide audit was issued on June 8th, the earliest in history. The number of low-risk oddities increased for 2016 from 4 to 6. The 4 were before, of course, DCC has always maintained it, Port Authority of Guam, UOG, and Guam International Airport Authority. And then in 2016, they were joined by GPA and GWA, so that brings the number to 6. It is our goal to have all government agencies that are subject to the Single Audit Act become low-risk auditees. We also issued 10 decisions on the 15 procurement appeals that were filed with our office. One of the most controversial decisions arose from the appeal filed over the Simon Sanchez High School Design and Construction Project. After hearing 11 days of testimony, OPA cited several failures by DPW and offered options to resolve the shortcomings. The PSI PMF. In line with OPA's vision for Guam to be the model for good governance in the Pacific, we strive to be a model robust audit office and always look for ways to improve. In May of this year, OPA underwent an independent assessment through the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions, better known as INTOSI, Performance Measurement Framework, or the PSI PMF. Representatives from the Marshall Islands Auditor General's Office and PSI conducted the assessment, and their final report is expected in December 2017. This project is fully funded by PSI. The report will provide a holistic overview of OPA's performance against international standards and good practices. It will identify OPA's strengths and weaknesses, assess our capacity development needs, identify OPA's value and benefit to the people of Guam, and measure OPA's performance. This month, Guam OPA will assess the FSM Office of the National Public Auditor in Pohnpei, and Yuka and Rodolin will be the ones joining the POSI staff starting July 21st, in just 2 weeks. We continue to advocate legislation to require agencies to issue their financial audits no later than 6 months after the fiscal year. Although the audit of the government of Guam was issued on June 8th, the earliest ever, it was not issued by March 31st, or 6 months after the fiscal year. And 6 months after the fiscal year is the gold standard. This is what is required by many international organizations, such as the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, where those banks provide aid to countries. They require the audits to be done in 6 months. GovGuam is a billion-dollar industry, and that should be accounting to the people of Guam promptly, not 9 months after the fiscal year end. By the time, it's too late to make such critical decisions. In order to meet this goal, GovGuam's current financial management system must be updated and supported with a solid accounting and infrastructure and staff. The system is a relic of the 1980s and should be brought up to speed with today's technology. Audits in progress. Since October 2015, we have been managing and reviewing our audits on Teammate, an automated audit software system. After over a year, we have experienced efficiencies in our audit process. 10 of our 11 audits released in 2016 were managed on Teammate. In 2017, we are conducting all audits on Teammate, including our audit of FESPAC expenditures. We are also issuing reports soon. And in fact, today, I think we just issued the Appeals Board funds. We'll be meeting this Friday on DPW equipment use. And we have other audits in progress, such as the gross receipts tax exemptions and GSA procurement compliance. With increased staffing, we will continue our proactive approach, suggest best practices, and address more audit requests. Our recently released 2016 annual report outlines other activities and accomplishments, and you can download them at our website. And printed copies will be forthcoming. It's kind of expensive because it's all color, and we're trying to decide how many colored copies to issue, or maybe not. Anyway, to recap, approve a lump sum budget request of $1.8 million, approve the carryover personnel lapses from 2012 to 2013, continue to exempt OPA from BBMR allotment, similar to other elected offices and the judiciary and the legislature, approve a salary adjustment for the public auditor, and amend legislation to require OPA to post links to audio recordings of Guam agencies board minutes. Right now, those are all housed on our website, and it takes up a lot of space. If we just had the link and they posted on their website, then it would not take as much space on our server. Thank you for the opportunity to present our budget request. We are here now to answer any questions you may have.
In your closing page, paragraph, you talk about the exemption of OPA from the BBMR allotment request. In here, you talk about the exemption from the BBMR allotment request. Though you've been exempted from BBMR, you still have to do Department of Administration cash management releases, right? For FY16, were you able to expend all the money that was appropriated to the office for FY16? Did you receive and expend all the money? How much was left over in 16? How much did you have left over? That was the amount that you wanted to carry over? $115,000 from 16. You still have the OPA, the BBMR exemption. You're not on.
That used to be codified, and then it was taken away, and so it's now every year in the allotment. We used to have it codified, And then that's why we didn't have it. But now, somehow, in going back, we found that that codification was taken away. So that's why we're asking it each year.
I understand that it's there. But you're going to have to repeat the answer on the how much DOA did not release in 2016. The 115,000. Was the cash received by your office and not spent, or was the cash not received?
No, the cash was received but not spent.
Okay. For 17 now, this question's for 17. Have you received all your cash allotments?
Yes, our allotments average on around $26,000 a month. Yeah, $26,000 a month. That's why.
A week?
No, a month.
What DI math times 12 will get you to $1 million with 26,000?
Because the vast majority, 80%, more than 80%, is for personnel.
And DOA pays that?
Correct.
And so you only
they don't need to give us a check. They take it out.
They take it out. Okay.
Yes, that's how we've been able to, and then they give us a check for the operations.
And so you received all your operations money?
Yes, and then whatever is the cost or any adjustments, like when you pay catch-up on personnel, they just automatically take it out.
And so for 17, you're on track?
Correct. Except May, and May was the partial, and then now we're waiting for July, because we did get June. Yeah.
In your statement, you make mention of the pay differential under Public Law 33-18 on page 2. Do you interpret that to be a permanent pay differential? Or was that supposed to be a bonus, a one-time bonus?
On the certification pay?
Yeah.
The certification pay was added, so the way DOA is doing it, it was added.
Once, or is it a
continually?
Continually.
Yes.
So if one of your auditors gets an incremental increase because of years, the 15% applies to that increased amount?
When they got it, let me just use a round number, 70,000, okay? And so you add 15% of that, or let's just say 10% to make it easier, 77,000, okay? That's the adjustment, that adjustment stays. And then what they do is they look at whatever level it was at, like let's say N5. And then if your increment will be then to N6. So they give you that amount of N6 as the different added up to the 77,000. They have a complicated formula, but that's how they do it. So wherever you were
what it turns out to be is that it's a permanent increase of 10%.
Yes.
Or 15%, depending on what the certification is.
That's correct.
And that gets multiplied times whatever your new salary is?
So again, what they're saying is, if you were at N5 when you got your certification, you're going to be at a different level, and it's not going to be on one of those grades, one of those steps. So next year, let's say you're going to get an increment. Your increment will go from N5 to N6, plus adding the 7,000 you got. So your increment is still by grade, but it takes into account that you got that certification.
It'll be 7,000 every year?
No, only the increment. So if you were to look, for example, at our staffing pattern, it still shows N5 to N6 or N05.
What is the 15% or the 10% applied to? Your current salary or the salary?
The initial at the initial time. That number stays the same.
And they get that every year?
That increases your base. Your base went from 70,000 to 77,000 as an example. But when you calculate the increment, going back to using the example, if your 70,000 salary was N5 as an example, and let's just say hypothetically it's going to go to N6, right? And let's just pretend it's a $2,000 increment, all right? So you're at 70, you're getting 10% to make it 77, okay, when you got it. And then when you get your increment, you'll get $2,000 more, and then it will become 79,000.
And when you get your new pay scale pursuant to the study that you guys had done, you're still going to be applying that 10 or 15% increase on top of what you guys got as new salaries under the new study?
It's going to be different for these three because they're unclassified. They're going to have to apply formally. Okay, they're going to have to apply formally. It's different from classified people. Classified people will be done through an internal adjustment, okay, like the way they implemented the hay. In other words, if you're an Auditor 3 earning, let's say, 45,000, and an Auditor 3 now makes 60,000, that's when the Auditor 3 will go to 60,000, okay? But these three, because they are unclassified right now, they have no rights to, they have to now make the decision whether or not they want to go into the classified service. If they do that, we're going to have to formally announce it so that anybody else can apply. Okay, it's an open recruitment.
If they move to the classified service because under the new plan,
right,
they're going to get 90.
It depends. I don't know.
Just isn't hypothetical. They're going to get 90 as their base. They get to add the 13,000 that they were getting under their special pay on top of that.
She's saying only if you're certified.
It's like a quadruple bonus, because I thought when Senator Rodriguez introduced it was to try to help you keep your staff and to reward them for getting the initial certification. And I kept asking, I fought it, and I kept asking at the time, is this permanent or is this a one-time reward? It's a bonus for getting this certification. Now you're telling me that you guys are interpreting it to mean that when one of the staff was getting 80,000 and got a $8,000 increase for the certification that they got, that 8,000 will stay with them permanently the entire time that they're at the OPA's office, even if under the new plan and they go back to the classified service, they get a starting salary of $100,000 plus their $8,000 that they for the certification.
I think the highest level is T and B or T and U.
Just as an example.
U is the highest T, yeah, and no one qualifies right now under U. No one qualifies.
I'm just saying, yeah. Just as if they, if they were to go back into the classified service, they carry that $15,000 or $13,000 bonus that they got for getting their certification at 15% of the salary that they had as an unclassified.
Let me just say, I'm going to take a number, okay, because the new ones are RS&T is what I remember, or S&T. That number starts, I believe, around, I want to say 75,000 or so. So let's just take that number, okay, 75,000, okay. So 75,000 plus the 15%. Yes, yes, okay. You know, Senator.
But the thing is that I thought when you hired this, I forget, I blocked it out of my mind, Carrie's company to do the study. I thought it was supposed to take into account all that they bring with them. Their education and their certification should all be in that one salary. And now you're telling me that you're getting this new salary under this new study, plus you're getting to carry your $13,000 bonus that you got the year that you were in the unclassified service forever, so that if she and one other person both are getting the same base salary, her bonus will be 13 because that was the amount that she started out at. But her bonus is going to be 6,000 because at the time that she got her certification and she was only a 1 or a 2 in the office.
I'm not sure, but more than likely, yes. Yeah. And let me just
say, what kind of equity do you figure that is?
Speaker, may I just say, when we did the study, we did consider that, like you were saying, when Carrie did the study, they considered the pay, knowing what we're trying to require for each position. But yes, we are currently included in the certification pay, and we have been working with DOA to, they have lowered the steps because they have considered that we are included in the certification pay. So what we did propose in the beginning was higher, but with working with DOA, knowing that we are included in certification pay, they did lower those pay grades. So it's not on top. It was adjusted to consider that we are included in the certification pay.
But why didn't you just get a salary for that position? Not so much but what happens if one of the new people in the office gets to your position? They didn't have the $13,000 bonus
in order
as
to get
their increase, and so they will be paid a salary which is the base is equal to yours, plus the 7,000 that they had as a beginning person in the office. But you get the very same base salary as he. But you get it with a $13,000 bonus every year.
When they move, they will also, because they're required to maintain a certification, that's how our plan is designed, they will also receive that $13,000 that you're
so
saying.
So maintaining your certification is a $13,000 bonus every year.
With a 10%, and maybe.
Or
less.
I find no issue with it because, you know, I just got back from the state auditors conference and my jaw dropped because the average salary right now that all state auditors are paying is $50,000. I asked this question, I said, what? Straight out of college, no experience, $50,000. Most of their management team are upwards of $100,000. And even the smallest office, well, I was talking to Maine and Nevada, because Maine and Nevada are the ones who do primarily performance audits, similar to our office. And their starting salary, straight out of college, $50,000. And it has pushed up, and it has made issues with their management team because the differential used to be greater, because management teams usually on average stay longer. And they had to redo some of this because they're saying, gee, a new auditor is getting $50,000, I'm only getting $80,000 or $90,000. So they have had to up the salary. So once you get there, okay.
But once that $50,000 salary
I
straight
have no qualms with paying that. I think it's worth it.
The additional bonus on top of the increase that you're now getting because you managed to get through the legislature are concurrence that we're going to adopt the Kerry study. And that Kerry study should have been all-inclusive.
Mr. Speaker, Kerry's study has changed dramatically since we've been working with DOA for over a year now. So whatever we had submitted, which was Kerry's study, has changed dramatically because some of the comments from DOA and working with their HR department was that the study was, the tasks that were involved in there were too detailed, so we'd had to narrow it down. And so it's a lot shorter and it's very different. And so in order to work with them this past year and 3 or 4 months now, we've changed the positions. We've even eliminated one position, was even eliminated. And so the pay grades that we initially had in the study done by Leading Edge has dropped. The pay grades have dropped. And this is over the course of working with DOA. So it's not the same study or the same positions that you probably saw when we submitted the study over a year ago.
And did the salaries reduce?
Yes, they have. Yes.
And I'm just still caught up with the idea that a senior person, all right, and classified member, gets her CPA and gets a 15% bonus for that CPA, 15% of the high unclassified salary, the higher unclassified salary. A brand new member of the office gets his, let's make it the same pronoun so that it doesn't become sexist. She comes in and she gets her CPA within the first 6 months of her being hired into the office. She gets a 15% of 40,000, whatever it is. And so as he goes up and he gets her annual increases, she will only be getting that smaller bonus, whereas those of you in senior management right now had your 15% on your high unclassified service salary. Is that my understanding?
You're correct, because I do have one auditor, an auditor too, who's 3 parts, past 3 parts, and she has 1 more part to go. And yes, she will get something considerably lower. The issue that is not clear, and you raise a very valid question, okay, the issue that is not clear yet is they got their certification under the unclassified. We're only talking 3 people here. So, okay. Should they, and there's no guarantee they will apply because it's a decision they have to make, okay, I do not know exactly how DOA will interpret that. And you raised a valid question, which I can go and clarify. But what you're assuming is that it's a new ballgame. And my assumption is this, that let's say they qualify for step 1 and it's an 80,000, right? As opposed to when they were 80,000 of 15% because they're entering in a new thing. Okay, is how I'm going to interpret it, not what they got originally. But I don't know that for a fact, and to say that with certainty, I'm not in a position to say, because I think DOA is going to have to interpret that, because it's a shift. It's going to be a new thing for them. You're shifting from unclassified to classified. What are you entitled to? Whereas the other auditor in my office, and hopefully before the end of the year she will pass, hers is going to be at the classified level. So you're going from classified to classified, and she will not have to apply, and that will go with her. In the case of these three ladies, and it's only these three ladies, okay? And let me just say this, I fully support, and if they can get it, more power to them. I would want them, I would welcome them today. That way I know they will stay. If it becomes lower, they will have to make that internal decision whether or not they want to remain with OPA and take their chances with whoever is the next public auditor. But at least they were given that choice, is where I'm coming from. And if they do get it, more power to them. I'm glad they will be getting it, because then I know they will stay with OPA.
On this certification, so one studies up for it, takes a test, and then successfully passes it, gets a certification, correct? Does that have to be recertified again down the road?
To maintain your certificate, right. Yes, you have to submit annually. Like, for example, the Guam Board of Accountancy, we have to do that every year to maintain our license.
And how is that recertification accomplished?
Submission, there's a questionnaire that's asked, and then you submit your CPEs that you take for the year. Okay. So those are all submitted. And then, for example, for the AGA, CGFM, nationally, they require, each year they ask for the same thing.
So you're saying then that additional pay compensation that is received for the certification, they continue to get that every year that they maintain that certification. Once they lose it, if for one reason or another.
This is new. How shall I say, the enforcement of that would be dependent upon DOA, okay? Because once the enforcement of that would be dependent upon DOA, but we go through the steps of ensuring our licenses are current. But enforcement, if they should lose it, what will happen? Well, that will be up to DOA to periodically do some spot checks to ensure that everyone is. Right now, the pool in the entire government of Guam is quite small.
Yeah, but theoretically, I mean, it's logical that if they lose that if they don't maintain the certification, then that whatever that amount is probably should be taken away, correct?
Theoretically, but I can't say for certain. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In your letter, you were requesting for 1.8, which is more than what the speaker stated in his intro about the governor's request is for 1.6. And when I look at its personnel,
I was not aware of the governor's request.
Oh, okay, yeah. He stated earlier, and it's in our documents, that the governor's request is 1.6. So there's a difference of about 490,000. And all right, I wanted to know. There's also some increases that you're proposing this year for contractual. It looks to me like it's quite significant for OPA consulting services, computer, personnel, payroll. It goes from $8,000 to $24,000, a $16,000 difference. Personnel, payroll. Is this for contracting that HR service?
Part of that is for website services. We're in the middle of negotiating a contract with Dimensions, and that's approximately $800 a month.
But it's going up?
Yes, that's a new contract.
This is like tripling. The current consulting services amount is $8,000 and it's going to $24,000. So that's one thing I noticed. And then the current legal services is $5,900 and it goes to $20,000. And there's just a $10,000 increase for hearing officer. So legal services is different than hearing officer. Hearing officer is all for procurement?
Yeah. No, the computer services is a combination of three things. DOA is going to be charging us $200 a month for payroll processing. We're incurring another $8,000 or $800 a month for maintaining our server, which is separate site. And then we kind of guesstimated the amount that we would need for Carrie. For example, like when we went through procurement, when we did the announcement, she was the one who did all of the grading and review and sent out the letters and all of this type of thing. So that's the number that is a little bit unknown, and so I think we estimated maybe about $12,000, which is still significantly cheaper than having a full-time HR person.
So the person the contractor that did the study for the compensation, you're going to keep them on board for
yes,
additional hirings?
No. For example, when we announced in April and we got the items there, she was the one who graded all of the people and scored them, sent out the letters of eligibility, and awaited for the appeal process and so on. No one appealed, and then when she did that, she gave it to us. We reviewed it. So that type of work. So we roughly estimated approximately $12,000 for her services, because in times past, the last time we really used her was when we did the study. So we estimated approximately $12,000, which is significantly cheaper than hiring a full-time HR person.
The legal also jumped up from 5 to 20. Is there a reason for that? That it looks separate from the procurement.
Altogether, legal is 95, 20 internally, 75 for us. That number has kind of like fluctuated up and down. A lot depends on the number of appeals. Last year,
right, but separate from the procurement appeals, we have hearing officers for 75 this year versus 65 last year. But then there's a separate item for legal services.
Yes.
I'm just curious what this encompasses.
This is our general area. Whenever we have issues, like I'll give you an example. When we went through an RFP recently, we were going to possibly disqualify someone. So we sought legal advice with the hearing officer on that one, because in times past that number has been actually slightly higher than $6,000 a year. So that's where that number came in.
All right. Is there, okay, so you're hiring, well, you seem to have filled, I'm not sure. I'm going to go look at the law that the speaker's referring to where they did some of the shifting, but this new accountability auditors, I guess there are new positions called accountability auditors. They will be receiving higher salaries than the current auditor positions. And are there different duties, or these are just different titles?
Auditor 1, 2, and 3 are generally the same. It is at the supervising area auditor and above that is higher.
Okay.
But 1, 2, and 3, for all intents and purposes, are almost exactly the same. And again, that goes back to if you were to compare what we submitted and what we have right now that we've agreed upon with DOA, for all practical purposes, the grades provided by DOA are lower than the ones we initially submitted.
Of the 11 performance audits that were done this year, this GSA procurement compliance, is that mandated by the legislature, or is that one that you chose to do?
That's one we chose to do. It is a cooperative audit with PASI. PASI is having about 11 people, 11 audit offices throughout the organization doing it, and so we're following, in this particular case, InterSci standards, to do the audit in accordance with the compliance way that InterSci does it. So this is kind of like a new venture for us in the saying of following their standards as opposed to Yellow Book standards. But
are you reviewing all procurements that GSA has done for a certain period?
I'll have you can speak to what is included.
In our sampling, we are trying to get a good sample of the different types of procurements that GSA does. So we've picked an emergency, for example, and then sole sources and some small purchases, blanket POs. So those are the types of procurements that are covered in the audit. So there's a sample of each in the audit.
Are there any other audits that have been mandated by the legislature in the past couple of years that have not been completed yet?
There are 3. Rod, do you recall which 3 there are? Remember when we did the mandate audit, you said there were 3 more that we have not yet done. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top. Yeah.
And then,
I'll get back to you later on that one.
I guess I just wanted to know what the priorities would be for audits for the upcoming fiscal year, for performance audits.
We survey the legislature each year to ask them if they do have some. The response has been very minimal to that. This year I did receive a request. I'll give you an example. Senator Barnes had asked us to do a follow-up audit on the Veterans Office. It took us 2 years to finally get to it, and that we did that a year ago. So we don't forget. It's still on there. Like, for example, Senator Uggan has asked us to do a request. I do remember Senator Atta asking us to follow up on something at the golf course. So when an elected official does ask, we try to give that very high priority because we, coming from an elected official.
Okay, so we can get a list of which audits might be pending for 2018, FY 2018.
Yeah, I can get. Yeah, there's. We mentioned some of them. The others include. Well, FESPAC is on the way.
Yeah.
We're doing an audit on road maintenance. We're doing an audit on gross receipts tax exemptions. We're doing an audit on what's yours? Liquor tax. I'm sorry, the tobacco tax. We're doing an audit at the request of the Speaker on health insurance. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are all.
Like to see that list.
So those are all in the mill.
Okay, great. Would you say that most of those performance audits are by request of the government officials?
Half and half.
Half and half.
Half and half.
All right.
Maybe less than half. 1/3, possibly.
Okay. When you lost the lapses that you referred to in your letter, do you still have some? Is there a reserve fund? I understand there are some agencies that have this. Like there's a little reserve from 2016, 100,000.
Yes.
Is there any more?
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Because the 2012, 2013 and 2012 of 500,000, that was our biggest. We lost that one completely.
Buenas, thank you for coming. I'd just like to tap on a couple of things.
Another request that's in the mill is Senator Esteves. We will be sending a letter to the agencies to give them some time. And so we plan to start that audit possibly in 2018 because we want the agencies a little bit more time to kind of get ready.
Excellent. Thank you. I was actually going to bring that up. And again, thank you for your support on that. I think my colleagues tapped into all of the questions I had, and thank you for your responses. I did want to ask a little bit more about the certification process, and this is for the CPA, correct? Yes.
CPA is 15%, CGFM, CFE is 10%, and CIA 10%.
Now, with the triennial evaluation coming up for the different pay scales under the Unified Pay Plan, are you looking to roll all of that evaluation up for those certifications as part of the updated job descriptions and certify and pay for these positions within the office?
We went at length in adjusting our position descriptions. That's what took very long between DOA and us with OPA, and I hope we're not going to update those that soon, because this is going to be a fresh position description. So I don't think it's eventually, but this coming out now, hopefully that will be able to stay a few more years before it needs to be updated.
I see. And what I'm looking at is just trying to bring parity between the government as a whole. When you look at other professional fields that require certifications, you see those certifications as part of the job description. Now, would you be able to tell me at least generally the difference between an Auditor 3 and an Auditor 2?
An Auditor 2 is one who can do a small job without supervising someone else, all on their own. Okay, as an example, Michelle is working by herself on the tobacco tax. An Auditor 3, Tirza, has a more complex audit, and she's working, for example, on the DPW audit, equipment use, and she has a junior staff, an auditor who's not an Auditor 2. You know, an Auditor 1 is one who needs guidance to some degree, hand-holding, because they're generally brand new. And an Auditor 3 is running that particular engagement. So the level between Auditor 1 and 3, the primary difference is an Auditor 2 is working by themselves. An Auditor 3 has a junior staff to develop and mentor. In addition, that the audit can be more complex.
Now, with the certification and the various certifications that you guys maintain, none of those certifications allow an auditor to practice independently? So what I'm trying to say is, does the certification give the skills, ability, or certify knowledge thereof in order to actually perform these audits, potentially without supervision?
Eventually, yes. Yeah, that's the whole idea.
So the certification in of itself is not an end-all, be-all. How necessary is it to the process?
Our quality control review will always require someone else to review your work. A person can, I'll give you an example. An Auditor 2 is working on the health insurance all by herself, okay? But when we say independently doing the job, but she still has a supervisor over her, because the quality control review always requires someone else looking over your shoulder, so to speak.
So, for example, and the reason I pose that question is, let's say, for example, you have an Auditor 3 and an Auditor 2, and this is where we
And each of them will have a supervisor.
Yes, and this is where I'm saying we kind of get into the weeds. Let's say the Auditor 2 is certified as a CPA and has all the necessary certifications, and is getting that pay differential, and the Auditor 3 does not have their CPA,
Correct.
does that still mean that the Auditor 3 is more uniquely qualified to be the supervisor in that position? Or does the certified individual have, I guess would be more appropriate to carry it out?
Yeah. It is unlikely that an Auditor 3 will be supervising an Auditor 2. It's unlikely. It will be the supervisor will supervise an Auditor 2, not an Auditor 3 to an Auditor.
I'm sorry, or I mean vice versa, or even with the supervisor. So like the supervisor position, is that required in the job description to have a CPA?
No. Oh, yes, requires a certification under the new plan. Yes.
Under the new plan.
Under the new plan, to have a certification. It doesn't specify whether it be a CPA or CGFM, but it does have to have
a certification.
A certification, correct. So that when you are supervising, you're also saying that, hey, I am certified also. Yes.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to ask, just to bring some parity, and I understand they're all different, but if you look at a couple of different models, let's say I was an attorney. If I wasn't licensed or barred, I couldn't practice as an attorney, same with the medical field. If I was an EMT, if I lost my certification, I couldn't maintain that job. And what I'm curious about is with that CPA certification, being as it's so necessary that the government should pay for it, should it not be as part of the job description instead of what seemingly as an incentive pay? And I do understand that they made mention that it is offset. DOA does offset that in the pay. But as you can see, it could be a bit complicated when you're looking at two different numbers versus everything's rolled into one, and within the job description it says, an Auditor 2 or Auditor 3, especially an Auditor 3 at that point, or Auditor 2, should have their CPA or CGA at least by that point, I would assume, before they're getting paid at that level.
Let me just say, Senator, right now, the Chief Auditor, which requires a CPA certificate under the current scale, under the new current plan, is only at an O level, which pays around $50,000. No CPA walking off the streets is going to want that position, because that is way too low. And that's why by adding the 15%, then it becomes a little bit more attractive.
Now, with the study that was done, though, I mean, they didn't account for that. I mean, when the HR specialists and they were looking at with the pay adjustments, they didn't look at the averages and just stuck an arbitrary number of $50,000 to the chief auditor on the low end.
That's right. That's why when the Hay study went into effect, the average increase for the existing staff before they became into the unclassified was less than $2,000. It was like another increment for one more year, and that was it. And that was at the high end, the 2,000. If anything, the AOs were the ones who got the bigger increase. They got like a $4,000 increase, and an AO doesn't require you to have a bachelor's degree. So there are inequities, sir. There are.
Now, are these some of these things that can be addressed in the future with updating some of these job descriptions and requirements for positions?
Well, the next time it goes through, I will be more than happy to discuss that, because I do remember a conversation that I had with the person, and they said, "No, we're not going to do this." Their mind was closed. I do remember pleading and saying, I said, "Nope," and they did their own thing, and that's why we had to do our own thing, because I remember speaking to that gentleman twice and talking. I said, "This existing thing is not going to help us." I said, "Well, that's all we're going to do." And he was not open at that time. I wish I had a recording of that conversation.
So you guys conducted your own study, and you guys have and are continuing to make attempts to meet those numbers appropriately.
That study was done in 2014. Today is 2017, and that study was dramatically changed with DOA's involvement.
What I'm talking about is your study, though. Is that still relevant?
No, that's what I'm saying now. The study that was done in 2014 is dramatically different from the study today and the position description that will be posted by DOA, hopefully at the end of the week. That study is dramatically different. What we did was we met halfway, in order to compromise.
Well, what I'm trying to understand, and this is not really towards you, is, God, I don't know how to say this politically correct, so I'll just say it. How does DOA get off telling you and the public auditor what it is you guys do within your world, right? And that's why I bring the question up. And what we can do within this body, to assist, whether that's giving you autonomy to conduct your own study similar to other independent branches, in how they move forward in evaluating the pay of their employees based off what they do. And so that's kind of the end results of my line of questioning and where I was trying to get to in trying to understand. Because it becomes a bit more difficult, I guess as you can imagine, having sat in this chair on our end to make the determination when it comes to the human resources adjustments and whatnot, when we're kind of looking at two different things, with the job description, what it entails, incentive pay, it becomes a bit more convoluted, and then trying to match that same parity with the rest of the government. So again, thank you, Ms. Brooks, for your patience.
Well, Senator, I want to thank you for that comment. I bit my tongue a number of times, and I felt that half a loaf was better than no loaf at all. Okay, and that's really where the compromise comes in. So in my opinion, half a loaf is better than no loaf at all, because we've been trying to do this for some time, and we figured out this was the best and easiest, the most likely area to meet the least amount of resistance. So yes, I have half a loaf, but it's better than no loaf at all.
And there's a clear understanding. I mean, I know obviously when they talk about the branches of government and separation of powers, public auditor's not within that realm, but we do understand the reality that the public auditor does act independently, and truth be told, is a creation of the legislature. So it's important to still kind of have to ensure that you guys have that certain level of autonomy in order to carry out your duties without any undue pressures from any source.
Senator, let me just say, I've been down that road for the last 10 years now. The vast majority of audit offices in the states, they have their own unique area. Guam, like Minnesota, are the few that have it in the classified service. The vast majority of, like Arizona, they all serve at the will of whoever is the state auditor. They are not in the classified service, but the court ruled otherwise, and I'm just trying to live within that requirement of law. But the vast majority of state audit officers, employees, are not in a classified service.
Well, thank you for your time today, and I'm sure we have more to talk about that on another day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just following up on, I thought we gave you some HR autonomy.
Yes, you did, and thank you very much. That was thank you. That's how we were able to hire, recruit sooner. But then we were faced with the challenge. We've told two people already that we need to wait until our budget because we don't have the funding for it.
Okay, for the new people, but for the HR, for the salaries for everybody else, I thought you were going to hire an HR person within your office to do that and to...
No, the law said an HR or contracted person, because we already had Carrie Paris on board. And then afterwards, then looking at what it costs an HR person versus what Carrie, I can't see having a full-time HR person for 15 people. And so it was cheaper. It's just like how the hearing officers right now, on average, are spending anywhere from $75,000 to $85,000 for a hearing officer, which is still cheaper than having a full-time attorney when you pay the salary plus benefits.
Yeah, I wish Senator Esteves had stayed, because I wanted him to hear that we did give you that authority, and it was your decision.
Yes, you did, and thank you very much for
It's
that.
a decision to still work with DOA. I would have thought we gave you the authority to get away from DOA. That was
DOA now, we have an MOU with DOA, and they're merely our payroll processor. But they are going to still audit, right, as well as civil service. Civil service and like, for instance, the last 2 or 3, they've done post audits, right?
So we've already have one civil service case because we turned in one personnel action. So they've decided that they will post audit at least the first 5 because it's a new law. So just to make sure that our records are in order when, that support the personnel actions that we send over to them.
What?
We're fine with that.
How do we need to amend that HR autonomy for you to be able to create your own positions? I thought you were creating your own positions through
DOA still has the authority to create the positions, and that's also in the law. So although we do our hiring autonomy, creating the positions is a different function that they still have authority over.
So it was the
Remember, we're in a classified service. We're in the classified service, and DOA is the overarching of anything in the classified service.
Okay. One last question, then. The annual budget provides $400,000. The annual budget provides $400,000 for the audits, the government-wide audit. It goes to DOA. Should that more appropriately go through you, or should that still stay with DOA?
I signed the contract, so it's fine. It's fine because they have to pay the check, and I don't want Deloitte calling me to when's the check coming.
Okay. I asked the question. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senators, for your time.
The budget hearing is now recessed until 10 tomorrow morning when we meet with the Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you.